Welcome everyone to Wrasslin Raw!
You're listening to Wrasslin Raw, the podcast that takes you back to when the World Wrestling Federation developed a little bit of an attitude. Thank you for joining us. You're here with Ryan Arico.
This podcast was rejected by the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal. However, a modified version will be in the New York Times financial section this Wednesday.
The unedited test run that's available to our $100 Patreon subscribers. Joe Giammatteo.
The demands of Clarence Mason will not fall on deaf ears.
Fucking Clarence Mason. And I'm the one and only Jason Bartlett, and we're going to examine WWE history one episode of Raw at a time. But first, a quick shout out to our new listeners in Missouri and Hawaii. We see you out there, and thank you for tuning in. In this episode of Wrasslin Raw, we're going to be talking about the Raw that aired on February 5th, 1996. This Raw was recorded at the Stockton Civic Auditorium in Stockton, California, and features Vince McMahon and Jerry the King Lawler on commentary. Are you guys ready?
I'm ready.
Ready.
All right, then. Let's get into it. Welcome, everyone, to Monday Night Raw, and we are not going to be fucking around tonight. The match prep is underway with Yokozuna in the ring, and Jerry Lawler reminds us real quick that Bret Hart and The Undertaker are going to have a championship match later, but that is drowned out as Shawn Michaels' music hits for the first match of the night. Two dudes with attitudes, that's Shawn Michaels and Diesel, defeat the British Bulldog, Davey Boy Smith, and Yokozuna with Jim Cornette via count-out in 10 minutes and 55 seconds. Shawn Michaels and Diesel kick it off with some rock, paper, scissors and a Wolfpack click too sweet gesture. Joe, is there an actual name for that specific gesture, or is it just the click Wolfpack symbol?
Yeah, whatever you want to call it. Click. Too sweet,
Too
whatever.
sweet. Yeah, that's what I always heard it kind of referred to as. But.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's not the only time we'll be seeing it here tonight. So, listener, make note. Shawn Michaels and the British Bulldog started off with a flexing competition. The crowd prefers Shawn. I liked Shawn Michaels reversing with eye rakes. I thought that was a smart way to go about the fight, as Shawn was getting overpowered by the Bulldog. But then, after clotheslining the Bulldog out of the ring, Shawn is left in with Yokozuna, prompting Diesel to get in the ring. Yoko tries to whip Shawn at Diesel, or Diesel steps into the whip to deflect it, either way, but the result is that Diesel catches Shawn as Shawn leaps into the air, and Diesel then throws Shawn at Yokozuna, putting the big man to the mat. Yoko was a little slow getting up, but when he does get up, Diesel punches Yoko through the ropes and to the outside. Throughout the match so far, the referee has shown zero control over any of this. I'm not sure how many times he's restarted the count, or if he's even counting. Sometimes it didn't seem like he was. The Bulldog confers with Yoko on the outside, along with Cornette, giving Yoko time to rest and Shawn Michaels and Diesel the opportunity to stand in the ring and be adored. Some semblance of order has been restored, and we end up with Yokozuna and Diesel in the ring, and I was amazed at how great this sequence looked. Something about Yoko and Diesel trading punches here looked amazing. The hard camera captured it perfectly, just slug for slug. And equally amazing was Diesel attempting a clothesline, but Yoko reversing into a Samoan drop. Diesel sold the back. Suffice to say, I was both extremely surprised and extremely pleased at how that pairing started. After some minor interference, Shawn Michaels ends up on the outside with the British Bulldog, and the Bulldog whips Shawn into the ring stairs. And rather than take it on the shoulders like every other wrestler, Shawn Michaels once again does something that made me say, "Ooh, Jesus Christ," out loud. He takes the stair hit directly to the quads, knees, and possibly testicles. That looked rough. While this is going on, Yoko is standing in the ring, leaning on the ropes. The Bulldog hitting Shawn Michaels with a vertical suplex looked great. After a commercial break, we came back to Yoko and Shawn in the ring, and here comes the Vulcan nerve pinch. He sat in that nerve pinch for a while, but this crowd was pretty hot for this match, really chewing into the heels, and the Bulldog loved it, was doing a great job of feeding off of it and keeping it going. Yokozuna pulling Shawn Michaels out of the corner for a simple scoop slam looked fantastic. It wasn't a very pretty scoop slam, but it was fast, and it still looked fucking impressive from the big man. Did you guys see how much the ring moved when Yoko attempted the splash and Michaels dodged it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yoko pancaked into the mat, and it looked like the ring dropped a good foot or two before bouncing back up again. Michaels crawling over Yoko to make the tag was pretty damn good. Things go banana as Diesel and Shawn Michaels do a tag team move, Shawn leaping off of Diesel's shoulders to splash Yoko. This draws the Bulldog, who ends up getting reversed onto Yoko. Diesel puts the Bulldog outside with a clothesline. Shawn puts Yoko outside with the sweet chin music, and the count begins. Being the legal man in the ring, Yoko, having been knocked out both literally and figuratively by the sweet chin music, draws the count out and the victory for the two dudes with attitudes. Once things get sorted out there, Cornette and Yokozuna are in the ring. Cornette angry about Yoko costing him the victory once again, and Jim is yelling at and blaming Yokozuna, prompting Vince in a worked-up frenzy to yell that Cornette is, and I quote, verbally raping Yokozuna. This is pissing Yoko off until he has had enough and shoves Cornette across the ring. The Bulldog and Owen Hart are there to pull Yoko off of Cornette, but Yoko is losing his shit, shoving Owen and Bulldog out of the ring, punching himself in the titties and roaring. Guys, I was pleasantly surprised by this match, and just going over my notes here, I was excited to reimagine it in my head all over again. Just really pleasantly surprised, and I've been looking forward to hearing your thoughts on it both. But Ryan, why don't you get us started on our show opener and its aftermath?
Yeah, I'm going to be pretty much in agreement here with you. This was, I guess, not a total surprise, because outside of Diesel, I mean, Shawn Michaels and British Bulldog, we know they're great. Yoko can do it sometimes, and so can Diesel. So it's not a huge shock, but a little bit of a surprise. And I thought it was a good way, just like last week when Shawn started with the back and forth with Yoko with the boos and cheers. This week we get some flexing out of the Bulldog and Shawn Michaels, and just a good way to try and suck the crowd into the match. And I think it succeeded in what they were trying to do there. And then they eventually do lock up after it takes a little bit of time and of them flexing, and they do lock up and things start to look good. You know, it's the classic just powerhouse Bulldog against the speed and agility of Michaels at first. And then once Bulldog gets knocked out, Yoko comes in and he gets pretty much manhandled by Diesel kind of at the beginning here and just punched out of the ring. Then as things go on, Shawn comes back in the ring with Bulldog, and that is some really good-looking stuff when those two guys are going at each other. The more we had those two in the ring, the better. Again, just like last week, you know, Shawn was doing really good stuff with Yoko as well, though. Obviously, you know, he has to take his breathers, like the Vulcan nerve pinch, that it has to come back in just about every match. I don't think I've ever seen Davey Boy do that frontward flip that he did. Did you catch that?
Didn't notice.
Yeah, I think I know what you're talking about, but I can't recall seeing it before.
Right, so there's a point where there's a whole bunch of people in the ring, and he does a frontward flip and gets a good boo out of the crowd, but I was like, man, that's kind of impressive for the Bulldog, and I don't think I've ever seen him do it, so I thought that was kind of cool. And then, you know, like you said, Bartlett, when Yoko and Diesel got in there, still didn't look too bad. This is kind of what you want to see out of two big powerhouse, big monsters like this. I thought they did a good job playing off each other, and I thought the ending was kind of good too. It went a little bit crazy, but it was fast-paced, and they just kind of took care of everyone in the ring, knocked them out, and since it's not for the belts, you know, a 10 count's as good as anything, right? So knock them out of the ring and get your victory. So I thought that was pretty good, and I enjoyed Yoko going crazy at the end. I thought he did a really good job, and the story did a really good job of making him leave. You know, he obviously is turning to a baby face here at the end where he chases off the rest of Team Cornette, and he's starting to get some cheers out of the crowd. But the way that he made everyone scatter, it made him look strong, even though he just lost the match for the team. So I thought that was a good job, too. I thought all around this was really good stuff.
Before I start, I have a question. Is this in the same building as last week's Raw? Do you guys remember?
Yeah, this is the final show in Stockton, California.
Okay, so Shawn Michaels and Yokozuna wrestled twice in the same day because they had that match last week.
Right.
So that's pretty impressive, especially for Yoko in the shape that he's in.
Absolutely,
So
yeah.
you guys recapped all of the highlights of the match pretty well, so I won't talk much about it, but I do want to highlight the purpose of the match was to set up this babyface turn for Yokozuna. I felt kind of sad about it because this is kind of going to, I guess this is going to be Yokozuna's swan song here in the WWF. I don't know about you guys, but I don't really remember his babyface run very well, so I'm guessing it's going to be pretty short. But the thing is, you know, what do we hear about Rodney the guy all the time? Like, he's such a nice guy. Everybody loved him. So it could have worked very well. You know, it would have come off as just natural. Like, he could have been himself and been likable by the fans. So it could have been something that was great, but like, you know, he's just too heavy. Like, if he could have lost the weight, he would have been great as a babyface, I think. Maybe even go back to that Coquina gimmick that he had before he was Yokozuna. It also says a lot about, you know, what a nice guy he is, but he was still a great heel and able to play that Yokozuna character so well for so many years. Yeah, it's just a shame. And he's only 30 years old here, too, which is just crazy. So, yeah, it kind of sucks, you know. I thought it was great. I thought this, you know, the way they did it was excellent with him going after everybody in Camp Cornette. You can definitely sell that because Yokozuna is such a big force in the WWF that, you know, you could have him go up against any of these guys and it's going to work. So even though it's something that's not memorable, I'm still looking forward to seeing this short babyface run for Yoko.
You know, it's funny that you guys have both brought it up here with Yokozuna. Something that really struck me about this, and to me it's all the more funny because he's heading into that babyface turn. This is the first time, and by this I mean Yoko's kind of snap out in the ring there, tossing Cornette and then fighting off Owen and the Bulldog, and then pretty much clearing the ring and taking full focus there. That's the first time that I have looked at Yokozuna in action and thought to myself, well, wow, this guy could be a monster. This guy is a monster. Any other time that he's been touted as this, you know, 641-pound behemoth, it's always like, yeah, you know, whatever. He gets in there and he does his salt throw and he does the banzai drop and whatever. But, you know, in this, we had his hair all crazy. We had the neck beard. We had his eyes open wide and looking like a pissed off maniac. And this is the first time heading into a babyface turn that I've looked at Yokozuna and said, damn, I don't think I would want to piss that guy off.
I think part of that had to do with the gimmick he was trying to sell. He was trying to sell this sumo wrestler, and you know the stereotype is that they're very calm and collected, and so you know you don't have this just flipping out. But I totally agree. I mean, at the end there, when he basically started stomping around the ring like a rhino, and he just sent Team Cornette scattering, and it looked great. Yeah, I mean, it was a great visual.
Speaking of great visuals, we have another mangled ear. Here's another Mankind vignette up next. Things are getting crazier out there, he says. Maybe Mankind has found a home so that Mankind too can have a nice day. Again, this was short, this was sweet, this was to the point, so if we could just keep it brief, I did want to get your opinions on this because of just how special it is moving forward for us and the future, but just real quick, Ryan, what did you think about the newest Mankind vignette here?
I mean, it was even shorter than last week's, but still great stuff out of him. Maybe not quite as good as last week, but still awesome.
Yeah, we're not going to see anything bad out of Mankind ever, right? So
yeah.
I think it makes me wonder who came up with this. This is excellent. Was it Mick Foley? Was it Bruce? Vince? You know, who knows? But whoever did, it's excellent.
Yeah, the delivery as well as what he's saying. One of the things that's really had me popping are just these little one-liners that he's been throwing into them. And as we've said, these are brief vignettes that we're getting.
And we're not really able to see his face yet, too.
Yeah.
Like we're not really, like we're hearing this voice and seeing like this silhouette, but we're not seeing
in the
his,
ear. We get to see the ear hole.
Yeah, we're not seeing his face or his body or anything yet. So it's pretty cool. It's very creative.
That's all we'll get, though, as we head now into our next match. The 1-2-3 Kid with the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase, defeats Hakushi by pinfall in 8 minutes and 21 seconds. I don't know what it is, but I love that staff that Hakushi carries out. That thing is just cool. I don't even know what it is or what it's supposed to symbolize or what it means in Japanese culture, but I just think it's cool as hell. And, I have to admit, I had completely forgotten about the Crybaby match between the 1-2-3 Kid and Razor Ramon at the next pay-per-view until the Kid comes out.
How dare you?
Until the Kid comes out carrying the giant cartoon bottle.
The Double Dare baby bottle, like
Yes.
like the feet.
Yes. The work to kick things off here in the match is fast and tight, and I have to remind myself that when he's not stuck in a stupid fucking instance of booking, the 1-2-3 Kid is a great wrestler. And the booking on the Kid has been just bogging me down in my perception of him lately. It was good to have this little reminder that the Kid can work. The sequences here, lightning fast, looking great. Things start to wind down a little bit, though. The 1-2-3 Kid is constantly doing these martial arts poses that, when put up next to the view, and I'm not saying Hakushi was doing poses, but the Kid, this kind of skinny-looking, dude from Milwaukee or wherever in Minnesota he's from, standing up against this jacked-up Japanese fellow with Japanese writing all over his body, and it's the Milwaukee Kid doing the karate poses. These things just didn't look good combined. Not convincing, not intimidating in the least bit. The running missile dropkick into the corner onto Hakushi looked good. But after a commercial break, we come back to the 1-2-3 Kid setting up either a splash or moonsault from the top turnbuckle, which Hakushi reverses by getting up from the mat and doing a leaping missile drop kick of his own into the 1-2-3 Kid while the 1-2-3 Kid was still in midair. That was fucking impressive. Hakushi's leap from the top rope onto the Kid at the outside looked great, as did Hakushi's shoulder tackle from the top rope. The Kid's attempt at a double underhook slam from the top turnbuckle was successful, but almost wasn't. And this was probably the biggest of a handful of moves that the Kid tried during this match that just highlighted how much smaller he is than most of his opponents. It was enough, though, to get the pin and the 3 count. However, this prompted the Kid to stand in the ring and make the same gestures that Shawn Michaels and Diesel were making earlier, that too sweet symbol. I mean, that's really weird, right? Like, why would this bad guy be doing the same thing that those good guys were doing earlier? As a child, I'm confused. Joe, what did you think about this match?
Well, when you talk about the click symbol, it's just, I mean, we're 3 months away from the curtain call incident, so I guess it's a sign what's going to happen. But the match was awesome. I really liked the match a lot. It kind of made me think of what WCW will be doing in about a year with their cruiserweights. It kind of made me think of those old WCW cruiserweight matches and was very exciting. However, there's just too much stupid shit hiding it, because you got this Double Dare baby bottle coming out, and then you got Jerry Lawler talking about the baby bottle match with Razor Ramon the entire time. He never stopped. So I don't know. I couldn't get into the match. I liked it a lot. I thought it was awesome, but Jerry Lawler's commentary and Vince McMahon just ruined it for me.
I early on heard Lawler and Vince weren't going to get off of the baby shit. So I kind of drowned them out and stopped listening to them and just paid attention to the match. And I'm really happy that I did, because it was, like you said, one of those WCW cruiserweight matches. This was just fast paced and constantly off the top rope or launching themselves using the ropes. high-flying kicks, just a lot of excitement in this match. Unfortunately, though, I mean, right from the get-go, we get the baby bottle talk. I mean, with him coming down with the baby bottle. And then immediately Vince starts talking about all the different scenarios that might happen with this baby gimmick match. And that was where I said, all right, I'm done. Let's just start this match. And it was great. Early on, there was a point where the kid has like a head scissors on Hakushi, and then he kind of does a couple hops back and forth and then does a backflip out of his head scissors. I mean, and that was just the beginning of just a long chain of impressive moves, which, I mean, the kid, I'm going to give him credit. The kid does a really good job, and I thought the finisher in this was very close to not being pulled off, but he pulled it off and it looked good. But I thought the bulk of the impressive stuff was coming out of Hakushi here. That mid-air drop kick to the kid's chest as the kid was coming up, it was absolutely incredible. Like, that's one of those moves you just go, holy shit, how did he pull that off? Like, how do you have that good of timing to know the right point to get up? Because he was on the mat, right before that happened. He pops up and drop kicks him right in the chest in midair. That is impressive as all hell. And that was kind of the theme of this match, if you weren't listening to commentary, was, holy shit, this is impressive, and this is the type of stuff I want to see. I had a really fun time watching it.
Yeah, agreed on all points. This was not exactly a surprise like the last match was, but it was a refresher, I guess would be a good way of putting it, on just how great the 1-2-3 Kid and Hakushi are and can be in the ring. This was a treat to watch. Next up, pre-recorded comments from Jim Cornette and Clarence Mason. Mr. Mason is pissed off because it's been a week and Vader still isn't reinstated. Clarence Mason just sells the shit out of this. He strings together a bunch of legal jargon, all while Cornette is just nodding and agreeing enthusiastically beside him. A fun little aside. After a quick replay of what happened between Vader and Gorilla Monsoon, we cut to Gorilla Monsoon in a neck brace. Of course it's a neck brace. Monsoon is injured, but it will all heal. More importantly, Gorilla has a need to apologize to the fans for his non-presidential behavior. On the topic of picking Rowdy Roddy Piper as the interim president, Monsoon states that Piper is a desperate action for a desperate time, but an overall good choice. Before we move along, Joe, what did you think about Clarence Mason and Gorilla Monsoon and just the way that they're keeping this angle alive?
Not much new with Clarence Mason, really. I mean, he kind of just does the same type of thing every time we see him. For Gorilla Monsoon, I thought he came off as pretty presidential in this interview, so I thought it was pretty good. But did you guys notice the fake crowd noise behind his interview? Like, no. They didn't shut off the fake crowd noise, and it was...
Yeah, I didn't notice it.
Yeah, it was really bothering me for some reason. It was like, I just wanted them to shut that off, because, like, it's not that I couldn't hear him or anything, but, like, it was just really obnoxious. But, yeah, I thought the Gorilla interview was pretty good.
Again, with Clarence Mason, Joe, I agree with you. There's not much of a change here, but again, as a non-wrestling civilian, pretty fine job. The guy can cut a promo. He could talk. I'll give him that. Gorilla Monsoon in the neck brace, that was pretty funny. I mean, the moment I saw him in the neck brace, I started laughing. And then he's, apologizing or whatever he's talking about, the reasons why that he gave the power over the Roddy or whatever. I just kept on staring at his neck brace, and I loved that.
Yeah, I thought this was pretty entertaining. The neck brace made me laugh, like you said, and I just think that it's a really creative way and great way, really, to keep us in this story. Because we've got Vader, who's going to be out for a while for his, what was it, Joe? A shoulder surgery, right?
Yeah.
That sounds like it'll be a little bit of time.
He actually had another surgery, and they're saying that he should be back by WrestleMania, is what I've been reading. So, yeah, I mean, we're talking almost another couple months here.
And with the way that they're doing this, these short little vignettes that last, maybe 2-3 minutes at most and go back and forth between a couple different people, it made me realize that this kind of thing is what was really missing from 95 and the different angles and feuds that were going on there. If we had had little reminders throughout most of those angles and feuds, I think I probably would have cared a lot more about them. But as it stood, we would get, one piece of the story 1 week, and then it would be a month and a half before we got another piece of the story, and it just wasn't a good way to keep a slow burn going, whereas this is. And I think this is going to do a good job of keeping us entertained, even though there's no actual wrestling going on with Vader.
Yeah, it's Vader, so it's not fucking Mabel or whatever other shit we had in 95, so that makes it a little more interesting as well.
All right, well, as we leave Gorilla Monsoon, we will go to our final match of the night. Bret Hart versus The Undertaker with Paul Bearer ends in a no contest in 12 minutes and 32 seconds, with Bret Hart retaining the WWF Championship. We cut to a commercial during The Undertaker's entrance and come back to a little video package for the 1996 Slammy Awards, taking place WrestleMania weekend. Cast your ballot today to decide who will win. I'm looking forward to that. The Undertaker is ready to go in the ring as Bret Hart's music hits, and after Bret gets to the ring, the bell rings and we get going. Something that I've never really mentioned before, but was really clear to me at the start of this match, is how Bret does a great job of looking like he's eyeing up his opponent. It looks like he's searching out weaknesses, formulating strategies. Within the first few minutes of this match, it just looks like Bret is studying The Undertaker and making a plan, and I really enjoyed finally noticing that. I'm sure that's one of those things that has always been going on, and I was just too dense to see it, but this time I did, and it tickled the hell out of me. It was very entertaining. This is shown as Bret lures The Undertaker to the corner, and once getting him there, starts to lay in some kicks until Bret then gets overpowered. I was pretty well into this match to the point of not being able to have taken a lot of notes because I was just kind of sucked in, and then Diesel came out. After doing a lap around the outside of the ring, Diesel sits down to commentary. Diesel makes a snarky comment about getting a pay increase to do some commentating, and unfortunately this turned into a live equivalent of the phone call jobber matches we've seen in the past. The conversation on commentary starts to all but ignore the action in the ring and instead focuses on the upcoming cage match between Bret Hart and Diesel for the championship. The dissonance between the commentary and ring action just took me right out of it. Things slow down as we go to commercial and come back to The Undertaker giving Bret Hart a suplex, something that you just don't see from The Undertaker very often, but it was a welcome sight. Just when commentary starts to get back on track with calling the actual match in front of them, Vince fucks it up by bringing up the upcoming cage match with Diesel. Much to the chagrin of Big Daddy Cool, Diesel thought he had the champion all to himself, but no, Bret Hart fooled ya, Big D, huh? Yeah! And just kept going with it,
He had to recap the entire thing between Bret and Diesel.
Such a waste of commentating energy, my goodness. Vince even argues with Diesel about the temperature in hell because of statements made and brought up in the past. It's almost like commentary devolved to petty bickering between the two of them. In the ring, the official gets knocked out accidentally, and in this case, I felt that was a pretty well done little spot on everybody's part. Bret started working on The Undertaker's leg, and while it was in the ring, that looked great, but then taking the leg to the ring post was, for some reason, just a bit of a step down for me. It seems like Bret Hart always winds up putting the big man's leg to the ring post, no matter who the big man is. An even further step down was Diesel interfering and attacking Bret Hart while the official was down. The Undertaker goes after Diesel then, knocking Diesel down, but Diesel then, he gets up and he does a pretty impressive looking running swing with a folding chair at The Undertaker. I mean, that was a great spot, but it's in the middle of all of these shenanigans. Things continue to go off the rails as Diesel and The Undertaker wind up in the ring. Diesel gives The Undertaker the jackknife, and then a second jackknife, followed by Diesel leaving the ring with nothing but bodies behind him. During a commercial break that follows, the Hitman had gotten up and gone after Diesel. Officials apparently got involved to break them up. Then The Undertaker had got up and made a beeline back to the locker room looking for Diesel. And we have nothing but Vince's word on any of this, as we get no video of about 80% of what Vince describes to us. We just get 2 or 3 still shots, and that's it. We then get a view of an empty ring, and the word that this match has officially been dubbed a no contest. Ryan, what did you think of the headline match tonight?
So, I was excited for this match, but we talked about last week, we knew that there was probably going to be shenanigans. And I was also happy to hear about the Slammy Awards. That kind of brought me back. And we also learned from Vince that there will be no Raw next week because we're getting the Westminster Dog Show week. That's next week. So as the match started, man, these were two legends really playing off each other. And I thought, you were saying, Bartlett, how you didn't have a ton of notes just because you were sucked into the match. And I kind of agree with that. It was one of those things that wasn't a particular move here or there that you had to talk about, like the last match with Hakushi. It was just very good work from two absolute legends that, future Hall of Famers here. Well, one is already. But then we see big dummy tool Diesel making his fucking way to the ring. We knew it was coming, but it didn't matter. It still ruined it just the same. At first, he gets to the commentary table, and I'm hoping, okay, maybe he'll just stay there. I mean, I knew he wasn't going to, but it was a hope. Then we get back to the ring, and, again, this stuff looked good. This was excellent work from these two guys, and I'm getting sucked into the match, even though the commentary refuses to talk about it. But then, of course, we're not going to get anything remotely resembling a good ending. We're going to have Diesel come in, hit Undertaker with a chair, hit on Brett, just completely fuck this match up. And then to top it off, after he fucks it up and causes a no contest in this match, he then jackknifes The Undertaker twice. Just how fucking stupid could you be? I don't understand it. Just one stupid feud into another for The Undertaker. We just cannot let him have someone decent. We have to ruin him with bullshit like this. I mean, yeah, we had a Mankind vignette earlier today, and since we know what's going to happen, we know that there's light at the end of the tunnel here. But if I didn't know that right now, I'd be blowing my head off, I think, because they are just absolutely murdering everything that you could like about The Undertaker right now, and it's disgraceful.
Yeah, I hated all of it. I think that it's lazy to put two guys against each other that on paper is a pay-per-view level match. I mean, one of them is your world champion, and you're just it's for the title, right? This was a title match.
Yeah, it was a title
match.
So
you're putting that on Raw just for shenanigans. Like you're doing all of this, and Bret Hart wrestled twice in front of this crowd as well. So this crowd gets to see Bret Hart versus the Intercontinental Champion Goldust, and then they get to see him versus The Undertaker. But it's for shenanigans, so it's a waste. It's almost like going back to when Diesel was champion. It was like, does this guy ever get a clean win? Well, now we're thinking that with Bret Hart. Like, are they ever going to just give him a clean win? The ref bump here, I sort of felt like, Bartlett, you mentioned the past couple weeks about, I think you said one time it was like, how did the ref not notice a 640-pound man falling down or whatever? I kind of had that same feeling with, so Tim White was the ref. He gets like barely touched by Brett's foot, I think, in the face.
Brushed with his foot.
Brushed with the foot, and it fucking knocks him out cold. I mean, Just
Like a fucking anvil dropped on him.
I know. I understand, like, you know, it's wrestling, but my God, make it somewhat believable.
Well, I mean, the fact that he just dropped out cold, like he's
Completely
dead.
out cold, yeah.
Like he's dead. For minutes.
Several minutes.
Yes. Like if someone was knocked out for this long, they would have brain damage.
Yes. The jackknifes were terrible. I don't know if those were just Kevin Nash trying to be safe or if Undertaker's just too big. Like, they were bad. Yeah, I don't know. All of this was just, I didn't like any of it. I did notice Jerry Lawler mention something about triple threat match, which we have yet to see in the WWF in 1996. I mean, that's something that we see a lot of now, so I wonder if maybe we'll get some sort of a triple threat at some point between these guys.
Well, speaking of threats, despite the threat of legal action, let's go to Billionaire Ted. This is all just shitty gotcha questions yet again, this time focusing on Ted's money, Ted's use of stockholders' money, the Time Warner merger, money as a motivator, and telling his dead father to kiss his ass. We then get a picture on screen of an ad that was supposedly rejected by various newspapers, advising Time Warner stockholders that Ted Turner has wasted $40 million of stockholder money in his personal vendetta against the World Wrestling Federation. And that image is what we fade to black on. So, Ryan, please, what did you think about the way that Raw ended tonight?
I don't really have much to say. I've talked at length about how I feel about the Billionaire Ted skits, and all of that applies to this one. It was still sad and still pathetic.
It's funny how the tables have turned, that Vince McMahon and the WWE are now the billionaire huge company, you know. But in 96, they're highly threatened by WCW and Ted Turner. It's just, this was one of the more bizarre endings to Raw that we've seen. It's just poor taste. And it's funny to think about because in 5 years, WCW is basically going to self-destruct. Mm-hmm. So none of this was necessary. And again, I'm just shocked that this stuff was going on for weeks and weeks, and it's more than just the Billionaire Ted skits. Like, they're putting legal stuff on TV.
And not just legal stuff, they're now trying to take out ads to try and tell his stockholders. I mean, it gets more pathetic every week. I see that, like him talking about how it was rejected. They rejected it because it was fucking petty ass bullshit, you idiot.
Yeah, that's probably the thing that got me the most on this was they keep on finding new ways to show us how they can be petty little bitches. And do we really need new ways? We've seen enough of it as it is. All right, and as I said, that was the end of our episode, so now we're going to take it on over to highlights and lowlights. Joe, why don't you go first?
Well, my highlight is the way that they turned Yokozuna babyface. I think back at Bam Bam Bigelow and how they did that with the stupid bullshit of, oh, you lost to a football player, so you embarrassed us, now you're fired. Where this was more, with Yokozuna, this was more of a believable turn. And I can get behind a babyface Yokozuna now because of that. My low light will be the ending to Raw being a Ted Turner reference once again, especially because this is a go-home show, technically, because the dog show is next week. So do you really want to end your wrestling show with some stupid, petty shit like this? Or would you want to end it with tune in next week for this match, or tune into In Your House on February 18th or whatever date it is? No, we're going to buy an ad in the New York Times and put that at the end of this Raw.
And bitch and moan about why they rejected it.
Yeah.
So my highlight, which, this was another fairly strong Raw. Maybe not quite as strong as the last 2 weeks we've had, but another pretty strong one. And I almost went with the Hakushi 1-2-3 Kid match because that was a lot of fun to watch. But I had to go with the tag team match with the two dudes with attitude and Bulldog and Yoko, just because, it was a kind of a surprise how entertaining it was. And to kind of piggyback onto Joe's highlight there, Yoko's babyface turn was done really well as well. So I thought that was the highlight of the night. Low light was easy as well. Diesel, just fucking Diesel, and the garbage that he keeps on introducing into other people's matches here, ruining the Undertaker's match. It's no surprise, I guess. We kind of looked for it coming here. We knew it was going to happen in this match, but it still brings a shit taste to your mouth when it happens. So that's my low light.
Oh, I can taste it.
Yeah, we're going to be almost in line here. My highlight, first match of the night, for reasons you've already stated. It was just a great match all around, and it helped out everybody that was in it, especially Yokozuna, who, in my opinion, needed the help. Low light for me, though, is going to be just Vince McMahon in general right now. Whenever he's not fluffing Shawn Michaels, he's doing petty billionaire Ted shit and ruining matches at commentary and just being a drag on the entire scene here. So Vince McMahon definitely is my low light of this episode. Joseph, did you have any contemporary wrestling news from on and around February 5th, 1996 for us?
Well, guys, the big story here is a trial involving Davey Boy Smith, the British Bulldog. It has started, and I gotta say that Dave Meltzer does a really good job of recapping a lot of details from all these trials and legal battles that happen. I'm not going to get into a lot of detail here, but if anyone is interested, the Observer is where you want to go to read about that stuff, because I tried to find some information from other sources and couldn't really find much on this. But what happened was there was an incident that took place in a nightclub in Calgary on July 25th, 1993. And there's really three names involved here. Davey Boy Smith, obviously, his wife, Diana Hart Smith, and a gentleman named Cody Light, who is 20 years old. There was testimony that Cody Light asked Smith's wife, Diana, to dance and perhaps made a rude remark to her regarding sexual practices. Diana then introduced Mr. Light to her husband, Davey Boy Smith, and what actually ensued at that point is subject to several witnesses' opinions. So, testimony included a dozen witnesses. Now, when you get a bunch of people witnessing something in a nightclub where there's drinking going on, you're going to get some crazy shit, right? So, a few of them testified that Smith attacked Mr. Light, which ended with Light suffering permanent injuries. However, none of the witnesses were consistent on what exactly Smith did to him. Cody Light, has like severe brain damage, apparently. So this was a pretty significant injury for him. The rest of the witnesses testified that Smith brought Cody Light over to the bouncers and walked away. At that point, Light went back to Smith and slipped and fell, landing on his head, knocking himself out. So you've got some people saying that the British Bulldog beat the shit out of this guy, and others are saying that no, he fell. He slipped and fell. Some witnesses said that Smith gave Cody Light a power bomb.
I was thinking maybe the delayed suplex, but...
However, Smith and his legal team pointed out that this is a move that someone could not perform without the cooperation of the opponent. So that was their defense on that one. The key witness here in this trial was Dr. John Butt. And I'm not making that name up. It's B-U-T-T, Dr. Butt.
No.
Testified that the disabling injuries were likely caused by the victim, noting it's a classic injury for people falling backwards on a hard surface. So I wonder how much they paid that guy. So, like I said, Cody Light suffered a skull fracture at the back of his head, and as a result is deaf in his left ear, his speech is slurred, and his motor functions, intellect, and memory are all impaired.
Whew. I mean, all I could say is, you fuck with the bull, you get the horns, right?
Oh, my.
Well, yeah, it sounds like Cody's team's strategy here was to try to get Davey Boy Smith to admit that wrestling is fake and then basically paint him as a fraud to the public. So that's their strategy, to get him to say wrestling is fake. So that means you're fake too. So all your stories are fake here, type of thing.
That's a really poor strategy.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm not really seeing how that makes Cody whole.
Yeah,
Right.
because, I mean, at this point in time, there isn't many people left. Even though kayfabe hasn't technically been destroyed yet, there isn't many people left that believe it's real.
Yes. And I will end it with Davey Boy Smith's story was that he and his wife and about 9 of their friends went to the bar that night. Davey said he was about 4 beers in, which, guys, we know that probably means at least 12, right?
At least doubled, at least.
Yeah. He went to the dance floor to get his wife, Diana, around 1:20 in the morning to tell her it's time to leave. He said that Cody Light, who was about 6'3" and 180 pounds, grabbed his hand and shook it hard, saying, "You got a nice fucking wife." Unbeknownst to Davey, Light had already asked Diana to dance earlier and was turned down. Davey said he tried to pull away from the handshake and Light would not let go. He says that Light lurched forward, so Davey put him in a front face lock and walked him towards the 2 bouncers and left. After he left, Davey turned towards his wife, then was told to turn around, where he saw Light unconscious on the floor. So it sounds to me like whatever hold he had on this guy maybe kind of knocked him out a little bit, made him fall down, or the bouncers beat the shit out of the guy and he fell, or they pushed him, or, whatever. I mean, when you're in a situation like that, you're not going to win. Like, if a bouncer beats your ass because you were acting out of line, you're not really going to win that, right? So that's it for now. I did find out that the charges were dropped eventually in this case. So I don't know. I find this to be pretty interesting. Again, a lot of detail is in the Observer. I left a lot of it out, but that's what's going on with Davey Boy Smith right now, and he's still working. So pretty interesting.
Yeah.
Now, as far as other wrestling stuff goes, I talked about Vader's surgery already, but he's expected to be back by WrestleMania. Another guy that had surgery was Billy Gunn. He had neck surgery and is expected to be out for about 4 to 6 weeks. And Ryan, I know you had Rad Radford as a Jobber of the Week in the past.
I did, yes.
Rad Radford had a seizure and passed out on January 31st. And was in critical condition most of the next day. However, he recovered and is expected to be back, or I'm sorry, he's not expected to be back anytime soon, but he is recovered. I don't know. Was that in any of your story?
No, not really. I mean, like, they didn't cover on it much that I remember. It wasn't anything important that they talked about that I found. But it's interesting, though, because if you remember right around that time, he was the one becoming the other Body Donna, not Pritchard. And then, so that explains what happened with all of that, why he kind of fell to the wayside and they had to bring in Pritchard. So that's interesting. Yeah.
The WWF did a small tour in India on February 2nd and February 3rd. Going overseas is not something that we knew about. They didn't advertise that on Raw or anything like that. So I thought that was pretty interesting. Last piece of news here is that there is very much talk and or concern that either or both Diesel and Razor Ramon may go to WCW after their contracts expire.
That'll never happen.
So the talks are happening already in February. It had to be the baby bottle, right?
It had to be.
It had to be.
And that is all.
All right. Thank you, Joseph. Illuminating as always. And that's it, folks. We're done with this one. I want to thank you again for joining us. If you like what we're doing here and want to connect with us, you can email us at WRASSLINRAW and just add @gmail.com to the end of that to submit questions or comments. Check us out on social media and on every podcast subscription platform. While you're there, don't forget to follow and subscribe to get every episode of Wrasslin Raw coming to you every week. Give us a 5-star review and let your friends know how much cooler they would be if they became Rawheads like you and me. Next week on Wrasslin Raw, we're going to be taking a look at the In Your House 6 pay-per-view with matches featuring Owen Hart, Ahmed Johnson, and many more. So, for Joe and Ryan, I'm Jason, and this has been Wrasslin Raw.